Welcome to Play the Bears. I'm Tommy. We're doing an overhead time lapse. I've tried to note which player was sitting where. I was planning to have excerpts of gameplay audio, just highlights, playing while the time lapse went by. However, after the game was over, Brad did really extensive analysis of everything we did wrong in the game. So I've asked him to explain all of those things, and I'm going to let him tell you about that right now.
As we played our game of Caylus, I noticed at the time there were a few things we were doing wrong in terms of the rules. After our game, I wanted to go back and look at the rules again to see if there was anything we had missed for future reference. I made a list of things that we did wrong during our game, and here's what I found. Number 1 was not placing houses on the buildings we built. This applies to all buildings. Whoever builds a building puts one of his own houses on the building to denote that he or she is the one who built the building. Number 2, building owner gets 1 prestige point immediately when another player places on his or her building. This is where the houses mentioned in item 1 come into effect. Number 3, each player places only 1 worker on the castle and may build 1 or more houses there for that 1 worker. The first or most rule still applies. Number 4, when building a new green or blue building, the building it replaces goes back into the stock and can be rebuilt except for pink buildings. The pink buildings are retired permanently. Number 5, if a gray building is activated by someone other than its owner, the owner gets 1 cube of a resource that the building produces, in addition to the activating player getting his or her payout. Number 6, you cannot advance into the royal favor columns if that section of the castle hasn't been counted yet, i.e. the provost reaching the count space on the road. If you get a favor and can't move your token because of this, you just get another of whatever your token is on. We may or may not have violated rule number 6 as we were playing. It's a little confusing because the spaces on the road mark the start of the next section, i.e. when the bailiff gets to the dungeon symbol, it means that the walls section is now open for favors. Regarding the endgame condition, I believe we had this right, but just in case, the endgame condition is reached in Phase 7 when the bailiff, not provost, reaches the tower's count space. So buildings could have been built after that space, and the provost could have been moved out there to activate these buildings during what turned out to be the last round. But in Phase 7, when the bailiff moves to or past the tower space, it's over.
And the camera, unfortunately, the battery died about 2/3 of the way through our game.
We played Caylus, or Caylus if you want to pronounce it more like the French. It took a long time because we really had not played it in forever and we weren't sure of all the rules. I enjoyed most of it, even though it was really long. We'll play it again, but I got tired of it before we got through. But it was good. I'm glad we played it.
So the game we played this evening that will be on this video is called, depending on how you want to pronounce it, I think the proper pronunciation is probably Caylus if you're going to go with the French, but us Americans call it Caylus because that's how it's spelled. We heard it described by a YouTube reviewer as a medium Euro game, medium to heavy. I think we would kind of characterize it as heavy because we're still somewhat novices, I guess, to the Euro games. It's got a fairly involved setup that you have to perform before the game, and that will be in the video. And then you have gameplay, which is played in rounds, and there's a lot of steps, and you have to keep up with a lot of things. So it's a fairly complicated game that you have to really stay on your toes and make sure that you do everything right. And we've still made a couple of mistakes, even though this is probably the 3rd time we've attempted it. But we're getting better every time. So it's a really good game. It just takes a while to play.
The game Caylus, that's the first time I've ever played that game. I'm visually impaired, so I had a little bit of trouble dealing with the board. I had to ask people constantly, what's this say? What's that say? But that's just me. By and large, you can see, okay, you won't have any trouble with that. or any of the little token boards or anything like that. The game itself was interesting. It definitely had a beginning and a definite end. It took us 4, 5, 6 hours. Tommy is saying it took us 7 hours to complete a 2-hour game. So we had a big learning curve, and there were 4 of us. So if you're new at that game, allow plenty of time, because you're going to constantly be looking at the instructions. But it was an interesting game, and I would definitely play it again. Definitely.
So the game Caylus, I think this was the second time we'd played it, but man, 6 or 7 hours tonight. We started setting it up at 5, and then we had dinner at 6:30, and so we started actually playing at 7, I guess, and we played until 1, with a lot of breaks. So it was very long, and we didn't really know the game very well. We obviously made a lot of mistakes that will probably be in the main gameplay video. We will be talking about, oh, we didn't know that, and we didn't know that, and we didn't know that. So I think we'll be better the next time we play that.
My name is Tim, and I know Tommy online. He invited us over, and we're happy he did. I like hanging out with my friends at home, so this was a good time.
My name is Eric Indersby, and these are my cards.